Ana Victoria Jiménez. Ana Victoria Jiménez, born August 31, 1941, is a Mexican feminist, photographer, editor, and activist that actively participated in the second wave of Mexico's feminist movement. She is best known for her archive, Archivo Ana Victoria Jiménez, which contains photographs, posters, and flyers that demonstrated or related to women activism in Mexico. Biography. Ana Victoria Jiménez was born in Mexico City on August 31, 1941. Her parents were Ana Alvarez and Ramiro Jiménez. She began her activism at the young age of 17. In her house, during 1950s and 1960s, she and her family read many journals by Politica and other newspapers that informed on the political climate. She also had many friends that she would attend political conferences with. As most famously known for her photographs and archive, Jiménez's educational training did not involve photography. After finishing her studies at Sindicato de Pintas y Escultores, she worked as a typesetter in a print shop. Her job was to check for any spelling errors found in linotype presses. Years later, she worked for IBM, where she spent much of her time utilizing a portable machine. Jiménez's activism and militancy was first enacted through the Communist Party in Mexico and later on in Mexico's feminist movement. It wasn't until her involvement with the women's movement that Jiménez began her work as a photographer and archivist. After participating and documenting in the movement for many years, Jiménez decided to begin her work as an independent editor, co-author, and desktop publisher. She focused her writing on the history of the Unión Nacional de Mujeres Mexicanas and its members and artists. She also wrote through many Mexican journals, newspapers, and books, concentrating on themes such as domestic work, women biographies, and campesines as women peasants. In 2011, her documentations of the women's movement gained recognition and was exhibited as an archive at the Universidad Iberoamericana. Since then, Ana Victoria Jiménez has formed part of important exhibitions in the United States and has continued her work as an editor and author in Mexico. Jiménez did not attain a high school diploma. However, she did attend Sindicato de Pintas y Escultores in Mexico, where she studied graphic arts. It was not until later of her photography career that she took an instructional class with well-known photographer Alicia D'Amico. In 1974-75, Jiménez decided to continue her photography education by enrolling in classes that would train her on technique. Communism. Jiménez has been dedicated to activism since the 1960s. In the beginning of her activist career, she formed part of the Communist Party. Within the Communist Party, specifically the Communist Youth League, she was able to become the secretary of the party's Comité Central, the Central Committee. Also, during her participation in the Communist Party named Central Campesina Independiente and Frente Electoral del Pueblo Central Peasant Independent and Electoral Front of the People, Jiménez was arrested and detained during an operation by Mexico's city police, which was organized with the intent of stopping radical activity by communists. Furthermore, due to her position as the secretary of the Comité Central, Jiménez was able to travel to the Soviet Union and other countries that formed part of the party. Feminist movement. Jiménez's active participation in Mexico's feminist movements, specifically during the post-revolution and second wave, allowed the activist to support feminist issues such as the legalization of abortion, equality, and recognition. Still considered a communist activist, Jiménez moved on to become member and founder of Unión Nacional de Mujeres Mexicanas During her time with the she became the group's representative at the International Democratic Federation of Women FDIM, which was stationed in Berlin. With the FDIM, Jiménez and others constantly worked on bulletins for the group. Then, in the late 1970s, she decided to form part of Mujeres en Acción Solidaria Women in Solidarity Action. After becoming part of Mujeres en Acción Solidaria MAS, Jiménez's activism began to shift focus onto feminism. Gabriela Sepulveda tells us that through Mujeres en Acción Solidaria, specifically after the march towards Mexico's Mother's Monument May 9, 1971, a march which demanded a change in the manipulation of Mother's Day and women objectification of the media, Jiménez actively began documenting demonstration. Another group that Jiménez decided to join in 1972 was Movimiento Nacional de Mujeres MNM. MNM was established by Esperanza Brito Tomati and other women who worked in broadcasting and print media industries such as Martha de la Loma. Furthering her involvement with the feminist world, Jiménez engaged in many feminist art collectives. Being part of feminist art collectives, according to Cecilia Fajardo-Hill, allowed Jimenez to question the discrimination in art that women faced. Her questioning led her to produce work that mirrored personal experiences of women in the movement and creating exhibitions which implemented the idea that one should challenge the patriarchy found in art. One of the feminist art organizations she became involved with was Las Retratadoras, which was formed after Monica Mejia, a feminist Mexican artist, gave a workshop focusing on feminist art, and soon after, many professors and staff of the university tried to prohibit the workshop from continuing by locking Mejia out of the halls and writing letters to the director claiming that men were being discriminated against joining. After hearing of the incident, artists, historians, and activists such as Patricia Torres, Elizabeth Valenzuela, Karen Cordero, and Nicole Colby decided to organize and establish Las Retratadoras. Photography. Much of her recognized photography is those photographed during Mexican feminist movement. Many of Jimenez's images portray activists during protests and events such as the March for Decriminalizing Abortion 1977 in front of Mexico's Angel of Independence, and the protests in the National Auditorium against the ideas posed by the Miss Universe contest of Mexico. During the time that Ana Victoria Jiménez was dedicated to photography, she sold some of her work and was even asked to create images for store catalogs. Her photos of feminist demonstrations were many times featured in the newspapers and magazines, but were not given credit. Jimenez claims that she decided to leave photography when she realized that it was not her line of work, unlike her work as an editor. She did, however, continue capturing photos until the 1990s. Jimenez began to create still photography in 1978 when she began to work with Sin Mujer, a collective which was founded by Rosa Martha Fernandez and Beatriz Moore. Sin Mujer was founded in 1975 with the purpose to create films that highlighted women's issues. Within Sin Mujer, Jimenez captured images from many films such as Cosas de Mujer's 1975-1978 Women's Matters. Cosas de Mujer's objection was to reveal the abortion restrictions that women faced. The still images which Jimenez created for the film were presented in many campaigns that tried to decriminalize abortion. Another film that Jimenez created with Sin Mujer was Rompiendo Silencio, Breaking the Silence, which was released in 1979 and centered on raped women. Both films were captured in black and white, shot with 6 featured interviews, fictional narrative, still photography, and statistics. Gabriela Seves claims that Jimenez's still photography, showing demonstrations by feminists, contributed to placing Mexico's feminist movement in a state of credibility and a place where they fought for global women issues. Jimenez's first photographic essay was Jimenez, 1985. This photographic essay narrates a story in which a woman climbs up to a tree to speak of her youth, while also portraying wishes of getting married and fulfilling her dreams. The woman of this narrative is eventually beaten by her husband and her children are taken away from her, resulting in her becoming crazy. According to Andrea Ginta, Jimenez's purpose of this photographic essay was to shed light on the influence that religion had on women in Mexico. Other photographic essays that she created were Ensayo sobre tu trabajo doméstico, essay on all domestic work, and Cuidado no de Tareas. Ensayo sobre tu trabajo doméstico is a photographic essay on domestic work from 1978, containing many photographs that capture the daily lives of domestic workers. Cuidado no de Tareas is also a project, an essay form that documents from 1978-1981 a domestic worker. Jimenez shadowed a specific female domestic worker. In this project, viewers can see the pictures of the domestic worker performing her paid jobs, such as cleaning and washing clothes. Jimenez decided to highlight focus on the worker's hands as she cooked, cleaned the bathroom, washed by hand, folded clothes, wrote on her typewriter, and used the sewing machine. Cecilia Fajardo-Hill claims that Jimenez's work in this project was intended to recognize the value of work in the home, which was an issue that many feminists wrote about during this time. Ana Victoria Jiménez's photographic style was highly associated with radical feminism by the end of the 1970s. According to Ana Victoria Jiménez, her style in photography was spontaneous when she first began to take photos. She utilized journals to read about techniques, but she did not know how to professionally handle a camera. She took photos as she pleased. After receiving some training in 1975, Jimenez claims to have known how to better handle a camera and take pictures. Before her training, she states that she would catch images by a far distance because she was afraid of the camera, but afterwards, she began to get close to the people she captured. During her time of working with collaborative groups, Jimenez built a dark room in her home where she learned to develop photolithographs to produce negatives for print productions. She even experimented with photolithography to print her own photographs and works. International Dinner Party. The International Dinner Party was organized by Susan Lacey to celebrate her mentor, Judy Chicago. This exhibition was created in the context of Chicago's first exhibition. It took place at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Jimenez documented and participated in this exhibition, which consisted of 39 ceramic dinner sculpture plates on a table, tablecloths with metal, scraps of leather, and pieces of wood. The display was 44 meters long and was displayed to the public for 3 months. Aside from recognizing Judy Chicago, the exhibition was also dedicated to many outstanding women like Elvira Truba, Adelina Zendages, Amelie Castillo-Ladon, and Concha Mitchell. Archivo de la Serena tratando de romper al soquilo sin fin. With teleculas y retratadoras, Jimenez photographed and participated in the organized performance, La Fiesta de Quinteaos, for an audience of more than 2,000 people. This performance took place at the San Carlos Academy in downtown Mexico City. The performance was organized with the goal to analyze the event of Quintetas, a traditional celebration that marks the sexual rite of passage from girlhood to womanhood. The group staged performances imitating the dance usually performed by 15-year-old girls and their male chaperones. Other performances by Maris Bustamante, Monica Maya, Victor Lerma, and Ruben Valencia form part of La Fiesta de Quinteados. Aside from photographing the event, Jimenez created her own board game based on the board game Snakes and Ladders, which she titled El Juego de la Serena tratando de romper el círculo sin fin. She recreated the board game by utilizing her own photos. Her version of the game demonstrated the life of Mexican women as a game dictated by celebrations, traditional myths, and female archetypes including the mermaid, Sor Juana ni Acutes de la Cruz, and social issues like menstruation and violence against women. Other works she participated in were Encuentro Feminismo Art y Mujer 1979 and the Exposition of Cult of Mujeres Artistas Mujeres presented in the Museo de Bellas Artes de Toluca in 1984. Exhibitions. 2011 Mujeres. Reactivando el Archivo de Ana Victoria Jiménez. 2017 Radical Women, Latin American Art, 1960-1985, Hammer Museum in Los Angeles. 2018 Radical Women, Latin American Art, 1960-1985, Brooklyn Museum of Art. 2019 Mexican Feminism in Protests, the photography of Ana Victoria Jiménez, Wadham College. Archivo Ana Victoria Jiménez. Jimenez's involvement in the feminist movement consisted of participating in events, but the majority was her documentation of demonstrations by the feminist. In fact, between 1964-1990, Jimenez was able to gather and photograph more than 3,000 of the feminist actions and protests in photographs and documents such as flyers and posters. The collected photographs and documents, which Jimenez saved, came to interest a group of scholars and feminist artists in 2009. The group's objection was to bring the set of photos and documents back to the public view. Their efforts to make this happen became known as the Memory Project. The Memory Project worked for many years, specifically until 2011, to turn Jimenez's most recognized work into Archivo Ana Victoria Jiménez. This archive of hers is located in the Biblioteca Francisco Xavier Clavijero of the Universidad Iberoamericana, Mexico City. It was first integrated with the exhibition of Mujeres. Reactivando el Archivo de Ana Victoria Jiménez. The archive is a series of over 4,000 pieces of documented and collected photographs, flyers, and posters collected between 1970-1990 that captured feminist protests and demonstrations in Mexico City. Gabriela Aceves-Sepúlveda claims that Monica Maya, whom was part of the Memory Project, was an important figure that helped transform Jimenez's collections into an archive. The archive is divided into 5 themes. The first theme is titled La Posibilidad de la Memoria, the possibility of memory, which gives an introduction to the exposition and archive as a whole, and informs the viewers of the content and characteristics of the archive. The second theme of the archive is de mujeres objeto comunicación, from women object to dolls in action. It explores the ways that the feminist movement shed light on many of the stereotypes attached to gender and the social and cultural effects the stereotypes has implicated. The third theme of the archive, Revolución y Rebelión, Estrategias Artísticas y Culturales, Revolution and Rebellion, Artistic and Cultural Strategies, focuses on specific techniques that the feminist movement utilized for dissemination and promotion. The fourth theme, Diversidad de la Militancia Feminista, diversity of feminist militancy, highlights the complexity and diversity of the groups that have supported and been part of the feminist movement. It demonstrates the different ideologies and strategies that were utilized to reach equality of both genders in Mexico. The last theme of the archive, Why tú qué haces, and what do you do, poses an important question to the public. What are you doing for the discovery and accomplishment of equality for both genders? It took Jimenez almost 21 years after she took her last photo, which forms part of the archive, for a university to accept and publish her work as an archive. Author and editor. After her participation in the feminist movement in Mexico, Jimenez decided to focus on independent writing and editing publications that touched on women's issues. She also published many articles, essays, and interviews in magazines and newspapers within Mexico and other parts of Latin America. Specific magazines and newspapers she wrote for was Mujer y Art, Revista Fem, Interview, and Siempre. Author of photographic essay Jimenez, 1985. Author of My Primer Diario, 1996. Author of Familias en Transformación y Códigos por Transformar, construyendo los propuestas políticas de las mujeres para el Código Civil Tola, Mexico, D.F. Grupo de Educación Popular con Mujeres, 1992. Author of Feminismo en Transición con Feminism, 1997. Author of Mexico, País de Ilusiones, Angel Basil's Batalla, Una Vida Dedicada a la Geografía, Notas Autobiográficas, Mexico, UNAM, 1997. Author and editor of Columpio sobre el Precipitación Fotográfica, Mexico City, 1985. Co-author of Breve Historia de la Participación Política de las Mujeres en México. En Límites y Desigualdades en el Empoderamiento de las Mujeres en el PN, PRI-YPRD. Ciencias Sociales Estudios de Género. Miguel Angel Porrua, Distrito Federal, Mexico, PG. 33-61. 2008. Co-author of Por Batalla, Don Cuerpo Mi Paro, Soy Yo, Sidhill, 1988, PG, 144. Co-author of La cronología sobre la despenalización del aborto, PG, 7-14. 1994, found in the book Sobre el aborto, una antología. Co-editor of Memoria de la Unión Nacional de Mujeres Mexicanas, AMAC, Mexico, 2000, PG, 368. Co-author of Don Cuerpo Mi Paro, Soy Yo, Autobiografía de una Journalista, Mexico, D.F. Comunicación, Intercambio y Desarrollo Humano en América Latina, 1988. Co-author of Finitas y Infinitas Mujeres y Bellas. From the series Guardianos Cuerpo de Mujer Cuernavaca, more. Co-author of Dentro a la Destrucción y Marriage a la Reconstrucción de las Conciencias, 1985. Co-author of Sembradores de Futuros, Mexico, NAMAC, 2000. Co-author of Manuales de Lectura y Redacción para Personal Administrativo del Instituto de Capacitación de la Industria de la Construcción. Editor of La Like Como Hacemos Lo Que Hacemos, Mexico, 2008.